Hybrid reptiles, when you take one species, put it with another species, and you get a whole new species. Is this a mutant or is it genius? Today let's go over the ethics of hybrid reptiles and the top 5 that have ever been produced. My name is Adam, this is Diamond, you're watching Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles, stick around. I personally think that hybrid reptiles are really awesome. I think they're very cool, but there are some ethics involved, and we'll go through that as the video goes on. But let's just start off with number 5, coolest hybrid reptile, Carpondros. Carpondros are exactly what you think they are. A carpet python mixed with a green tree python. And I personally think this is really cool. You take an arboreal snake and a semi-arboreal snake and you put them together and you get yourself something that looks really cool. They look very much in the middle. They have that really cool type of texture and pattern of a carpet python. And by the way, all species of carpet python that we know about, as far as I've read, can make Carpondros. So it's kind of cool because they're part of the same part of the world. So this doesn't happen in nature, it is man-made, but the result is absolutely stunning. You get the pattern of a carpet python and you get something that is basically always perched in a tree like a green tree python. And yes, they have massive teeth. You guys know that carpet pythons have big teeth and green tree pythons have giant teeth. And these guys together, well, yeah, don't get bit by one. It's not going to be a fun time. From what I read, you're going to get kind of the size in between whatever you breed, right? And because carpet pythons come in different sizes depending on what species of carpet python you breed, you're going to get different sizes. So if you breed something like a coastal, you're going to get probably a much larger animal than if you bred something like an Irian-Jaya, something like that. Which, if you ask me, is still super cool because you get variations within a variation. And these guys, they're kind of like the original gangster, the OG of hybrid reptiles. They've been around for a long time. Probably not the first ever to be bred as a hybrid snake, but they've been around forever. Let's move on to something a little bit bigger. Number 4, Borneo bat eaters. Now, what the heck is a Borneo bat eater besides like the coolest name ever? Well, it's a reticulated python and a Burmese python together. Are they named that because they eat bats? I don't think that's why at all. Are you leaving me, Diamond? Come back. But these guys are kind of the most popular large snakes. I mean, it really kind of comes down to what do you want? Something that gets a little bit longer and has a little bit more of a food drive and a reticulated python? Or do you want something that, I don't know, I'm going to be super biased. I prefer Burmese pythons. I have one myself, but I do think these are really cool and you can get actually different morphs now. And that kind of seems the way that it goes. It seems like you create something brand new and then that's not enough and then now you got to have morphs. And we actually do have morphs of Borneo bat eaters that aren't just regular Borneo bat eaters, which sounds crazy to say. Now the size is in between. Now we all know that Burmese pythons and retics are both gigantic. They're both massive. But these guys are going to be kind of in the middle. So it depends, right? If you use a male or a female retic and a male or a female Burm, that's, from what I understand, what kind of makes the difference. But they're always kind of in between on size. So you might get something that's like 15 feet, but you're unlikely to get something that gets up to like 20 feet. And when you put just a normal and a normal together, wow, these things look so cool. And I don't know who produced these first. I know that Bob Clark's produced them. I know that Nerd has produced them, but I just think it's super cool that you can take two things that are so popular, put them together and make something that kind of has the best attributes or hope for the best attributes for both. Okay, let's move away from snakes. Number 3, leopard and sulcata tortoises. And I don't have a designer name. I don't know what the designer name is for these. And the first time I ever heard about these was I was watching a Camp Kennan video and he got a couple of them, which is kind of cool because if you know anything about tortoises, sulcatas are the biggest common species to be kept. They're the 3rd biggest in the entire world, but not too many of us have galaps or aldabras. So these guys are kind of like the biggest thing you can get reasonably in a private collection for a tortoise. And although leopard tortoises aren't tiny, they're definitely a lot smaller than a sulcata. So you get something that's very much in the middle, but closer to a leopard tortoise size most of the time. Now, from what I understand, Reptile Odyssey is who produced these first. And these guys have kind of like a leopard tortoise shell looking that is muted. Because I think the coolest thing about leopard tortoises and why a lot of people really love them is just simply because they are beautiful. These are one of the most beautiful tortoise, in my opinion anyway, and a lot of people would say that, is that they're the most beautiful tortoise that you can find, and he doesn't want to be on my shoulder today. But you get a little bit of extra size, and in exchange you get a little bit more of a muted out pattern, so they're not quite as beautiful as a regular leopard tortoise, but you get the extra size, and a lot of the attributes kind of look in between. But I just think it's cool because with snakes, everyone knows that snakes can breed and make hybrids. You know, California king snakes and milk snakes in the wild will just breed. And there's a lot of actually gaboon vipers and rhino vipers, which won't be on this list. Again, they'll interbreed in the wild. But with a leopard tortoise and a sulcata, you'll never see this in the wild. So I just think it's super duper cool. And yeah, it's a man-made thing and you might be against it, but like, look how beautiful this thing is. All right, number 2, and probably the only one I would ever consider actually keeping myself, berm balls. And actually you can get ball ticks, which is kind of like a ball python and a retic, but a berm ball is a Burmese python and a ball python. I think it's kind of obvious just by the name. I think these guys are cool because I love both. I have both. I have a baby berm. I can't wait for her to grow up, and I've got tons and tons of ball pythons. There's kind of like one of the animals that I've had the longest and one of the ones that I really, really love. I love ball pythons, but what I love about them is their temperament. So if you can get something the size of a berm and the temperament, they're also pretty good temperament too, but the temperament of a ball python, and you can get them in like the pattern that's mixed together and the size that's kind of in the middle, to me that's amazing. Because I think berms are too big for most people. But what if you wanted something like a ball python, but it's the size of, say, a boa constrictor, like a BCC. You want a 10-foot animal that looks like a python. Well, why not get yourself a berm ball? Because you're going to get something that has a placid temperament, that is absolutely beautiful, and is going to be in between. A ball python is going to get to like 5 feet, probably. Top out around 5 feet, maybe a little bit bigger if you get a really big female. Where a berm, you might get a 12 or 15 foot animal, or even bigger maybe. So put them together and you get yourself like a 10 or 11 foot animal. And this is from what I read, by the way. I don't actually own one of these now, but I think that if I were to consider any type of hybrid reptile, it'd be these. Now, I'm not sure who produced these first, but I know that Bob Clark has produced these, and just looking at them, they look absolutely stunning. Now, of course, if you were to breed these, I'm not saying that you should, but if you did, then you'd always want the female to be the bigger animal. Always get the female to be the berm and the male to be the ball python. The other way around, I don't actually know if you'd get egg binding or issues or whatever, but I just feel like probably not the best practice. And again, this is not a how to make hybrids video. I would never do a video like that. I just think that these guys are cool. They're worth talking about. And I mean, if you're for or against, at least you can admire the beauty that is actually being made and has been made by these breeders. And number 1, and in my opinion, the coolest, most wild looking hybrid reptile you could ever even think of, boa condas. Boa condas are exactly what you think they are. They're boas and anacondas, and from what I understand, it's Colombian boas and it is green anacondas that are put together, and obviously one is much bigger than the other. Now, Crystal Palace, from what I understand, is who made these first, and I know there are other breeders that are trying to make these. I think it's pretty cool because you're gonna get something like a 10-foot animal or an 8-foot animal or whatever it is that a Colombian boa is gonna top out at. It often depends on how you feed them and many other factors. And you get a green anaconda, which are the heaviest bodied snake in the world, and you get these like fat sausages that are pretty long, but not super duper long, probably big enough you'd need a second person to handle them, but they're the wildest looking, and that's why they're number 1 on the list, because they look kind of in between. I think these are the coolest looking. Look at this thing. It looks in between an anaconda and a boa. I think it's really cool, and the only thing that could make it even cooler is if you had this green and black patterning and then you had a red tail. That would be cool, and from what I understand, I don't think anyone's made something like that, but like, think about it. That'd be pretty cool. And yes, of course, anacondas are technically boas. They are in the boa family. And I get a lot of questions oftentimes about, hey, could this breed with this? No, you can't get a python and a boa to breed. They're not the same thing. One of them doesn't even produce eggs. The other one produces live young, right? So I guess that's one produces eggs and one produces live young. So you can't breed things together like that. But things in the same family, like a boa and an anaconda, well, obviously you can, because it's been done. And I think it's super cool. So what do you think? I know I missed a few. Should I do a whole other one that just focuses not much on snakes? Let me know in the comments section below. That's where I got the idea for this video in the first place. And what do you think? Are hybrid reptiles mutants or are they genius? What do you think? Would you ever own one? I'd love to hear it in the comments section. And as always, the most special thank you to the Patreon supporters. You guys are superstars. You get discounts on the merch like this. You get to see videos early, extra stuff, extra photos. I'm posting every day on there now. So for as little as $1 a month, you can be part of the Patreon team. And a special thank you for the guys who sent me this behind me. Cages Custom Enclosures, the best that I could possibly even imagine. I can't imagine how you could possibly make PVC enclosures better than these guys do. There's a whole video about me setting up this one last week. Boom, right in the corner there that you can watch. Use the link below so they know I sent you. It costs you nothing extra. They kick me a couple of bucks. And if you use code WWR at checkout, you get yourself free door handles. And if you're wondering, well, what do you feed this beautiful leopard gecko that you got in your hand? Black soldier fly larva for my friends at Grubterra. These guys produce and supply the best feeders I could possibly imagine feeding to your collection. I feed them to leopard geckos, I feed them to diamond the bearded dragon, I feed them to jeweled lacerda, Sudan plated lizard, you name it. If they can eat insects, and if you're feeding crickets and dubias right now, maybe add some black soldier fly larva. And if you want something that's shipped directly to your door, use Grubterra and code WWR at checkout for 10% off your order. And as always, at the end I rambled like way too long, but thank you very much for watching. Hit subscribe and I'll see you on Monday.